Truth Unveiled here, keeping you updated with the world around you and letting you know what time it is, because lately you've been hearing peace and safety, peace and security throughout the mainstream media and throughout the news. What time do you think it is? But I'm here at Reuters and it says France sets Middle East Peace Conference for June 3rd, which is today. An international conference set in Paris to help relaunch the peace talks between Palestinians and Israelis will go ahead on June 3rd, allowing the U.S. to attend, France's foreign minister said on Thursday. The date that I can announce today that allows everyone to participate will be on June 3rd, which already took place. And they told the reporters this on the sidelines of a NATO meeting in Brussels after meeting U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. Also, it's interesting because he talked about preparing for a borderless world to college students. Oh my goodness, but is that all? And of course, when they're talking about peace and security, peace and safety, we know some serious alarm bells should be ringing, because I'm here back at Reuters, which was reported today, and it says, chance of two-state solution fading, France says in reviving Israeli-Palestinian peace push. And we know darn well, even if they did sign a peace treaty, would that really end all of the war going on? Will that really bring all of the peace? Let's find out. But it says a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict may soon be impossible, France warned on Friday as it held an international conference to revive the quest for a deal despite Israel's warning that the effort is soon doomed to failure. With U.S. efforts to broker an accord and deep freeze for 2 years and Washington focused on its November presidential election because we know what that's leading to, France hosted a conference with the aim of breaking the apathy over the impasse and stir new diplomatic momentum. Palestinians have welcomed the French initiative, but Israeli officers have said an international conference will not work and that only direct talks between the old foes can bring peace. Neither Israel nor the Palestinians were invited to the conference, though the objective is to get them to negotiate after the U.S. elections. Why would they need to negotiate after these U.S. elections? For those of us who are awakened, we know darn well that Mr. Obama is going to stay in office. But it's interesting that they would even bring up the U.S. elections to begin with and even correlate all of this with the U.S. elections. What are they really saying? And then it's interesting how the French foreign minister is also talking about the two-state solution is in serious danger. I wonder why. And then he also says that they're reaching a point of no return where this solution will not be possible. Why is that the case? Now, the BBC also reports the same thing, our favorite, and I'm being sarcastic there, but the reason I'm showing you this is because you need to see exactly the bigger agenda and what's really going on, because as we see once again, we see that the mainstream media are pushing the whole two-state solution, peace and security propaganda and agenda, and you're going to see that from our favorite, the United Nations, in just a second to come. But as you can see, here we go again with the same agenda that was being pushed back in September of 2015, and we see it once again, yet again. So we know that this can only mean that sudden destruction is even at the door. You can call it what you want to, but it's just the darn truth. So that is why I am reporting on these things and reporting on these issues and reporting on these topics so that you can see the warning signs ahead of time, but so that you can also better prepare yourself and your family for the changes to come and for the sudden destruction that is to come, because we know it cometh as travail upon a woman. But the question is, are you and your family ready for those things to come? Are you prepared for these things to come? And are you seeing the warning signs ahead of time before they get here? And my biggest hope is that you are. But I'm here at Haaretz, and it says, Sanders, Israel's right to exist in peace and security is not up for debate. Interesting, because again, this reiterates the election and how they're pushing the elections 2016 to coincide with the whole Israel-Palestinian debate and conflict. And notice how the title of this article says peace and security, reminding you of UN Agenda 2030, depopulation. And by the way, we know the bigger agenda. We know darn well that George Soros and all those other Zionist terrorists who are up there and ranking with the elite, we know that they conspire to do all of the things that they're doing, and we know that they plan, stage, and plot ahead of time these wars that are going on in the Middle East and places such as Palestine and Syria. We know that for a fact. Why do you think ISIS never attacks Israel? I wonder why that's the case. I will let you figure that out on your own. Now, the Haaretz article goes on to talk about how Bernie Sanders agrees that Israel should have their own state and how they should have their own state and their own borders and how the state of Israel needs to be protected and have peace and security and how Palestinians and Israelis need to get along because that is what they're going to keep pushing when Bernie Sanders is funded by the Zionists to say those things, as well as Clinton and Obama and Trump and all of them. They're all Illuminati puppets and they all have to defend Israel every single way they can. Why do you think America is graciously giving Israel reparations for the supposed alleged 6 million from the Holocaust? And you can look up the World Almanac of the Jewish population and that will tell you something completely different, and that's all I'm going to say about that issue. But I'm here at Peace Now, and the reason I'm here is because it says what? Promoting peace in Israel. Peace Now is the leading voice of Israeli public pressure for peace. And what I want to show you this, and the reason I'm showing you this is because I'm showing you all of the peace and security that has been called for, all of the peace and safety that we've been hearing, and how they are pushing this agenda with Israel and Palestine. And later on, I'll even show you how they've been pushing it with the United Nations. But of course, this organization is all about how they support the right of Israel to exist within secure borders and the right of their neighbors to do the same, even though they've been existing in their own borders illegally for 68 years now, because that's not their land, newsflash, and how they advocate for a politically negotiated two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, how they believe that Israel's unique status as a free and open democracy society in the Middle East endows the Israel public with the special responsibility to promote the basic human rights of freedom, justice, and equality for all people in that region, and how they work to break down divisive stereotypes through education on both sides of the conflict. And they are Israel's most veteran and diverse peace movement with over 10,000 members from the Middle East and around the world, and their work has been supported and endorsed by hundreds of prominent academics, politicians, and philosophers, including Amos Oz and David Grossman. And the majority of Israelis and Palestinians support a peaceful two-state solution. Peace Now insists that politicians on both sides of this issue serve their constituencies by creating the reality of peace now. Then it goes on to talk about the mission and the history, as well as partners in peace. You could come here and read this stuff on your own time, and even some of the activities that they're doing. Now, like I said, the reason I'm even talking about this and reporting from this website right now is because I want you to see how they are pushing this peace and security, peace and safety. Oh, Israel and Palestine need to be at peace. It's the same agenda. And they're not the only ones who are pushing this worldwide, because you're going to see they're also pushing it. They, as in the elite, are pushing this through mainstream or live stream media with North Korea too. But it's interesting how they're pushing all of this at such a time as this. And when they say that they're trying to promote the basic human rights of freedom, justice, and equality for all people in that region, well, can you explain all of the wars that are going on in that region except for Israel? Can you explain the war-torn Syria? Can you explain the war-stricken Palestine? Can you explain all of these things and why there's an increase and an uptick in the war? Because the Zionists are the one funding it to begin with, just like they're funding these Syrian refugees to spread all over Europe and to spread the diseases that are associated with them so that they can cause and wreak havoc worldwide, and they're bringing it to America. But see, the mainstream media is not going to report this stuff, and they're not going to tell you this stuff because they want Americans to be mentally conditioned, and they want them to believe that, oh, everything is okay. Oh, the UN has it all under control because they're the peacekeepers, even though that's been proven to be a lie. Why? Because there is a bigger agenda. And just think for a second, wait a second. How was the Middle East region before 1948? Because last I checked, before 1948, there were no wars at all in this particular region. Now, all of a sudden, there are. Could this have something to do with Albert Pike and how he's even talked about how they're going to use Islam to spread World War and trigger World War III? Is that what's going on? Do not believe the hypocrisy that is mainstream media. And the reason I'm reporting all this is so that I can show you the hypocrisy and expose truth to you any single way I can. But I'm here at the Korea Times, and it says North Korea may leak suspension of nuke test to peace treaty talks report, because North Korea is a rogue nation, because they're one of 3 nations that do not have a Rothschild bank in them. I wonder why they're going after and targeting North Korea, because newsflash, North Korea does not have a nuclear bomb and never will, because they're trying to demonize North Korea any single way they can. They, as in America and Israel, just like how they demonize every other single nation on earth except for themselves. Why do you think that's the case? But I wanted to show you this because I want to show you how they've been talking about peace treaties and peace and safety all across the world in North Korea and with Israel and Palestine. And we're seeing that uptick like never before. What are they getting ready for is the question. Because anytime they say peace and security and peace and safety, you know it's the exact opposite. Now, I thought it was interesting because recently it was the UN peacekeepers, or what they call agents of world peace and security. And this was a headline that was on graphic.com. But the reason I'm showing you this is because May 29th marked the International Day of UN Peacekeepers. That was a couple of days ago on May 29th of this year. Oh, but that's not all. It is very reminiscent from the International Day of Peace that we saw back in September 21st with all the 923 hoopla. I'm telling you, there's a bigger agenda behind all this. But I'm here at the United Nations News Center, and as you can see here, it says Paris ban calls for courage and legitimacy to achieve peace in the Middle East. And once again, we hear that word peace, and I even highlighted it, but it says terror, violence, and incitement that fueled them, along with the ongoing settlement enterprise and the lack of unity between Gaza and the West Bank, are all obstacles that must be overcome on the path toward achieving peace in the Middle East. UN Secretary General stressed today, calling on the international community to exercise its influence to help reach its goal. Oh, just like the goal of Agenda 2030 calling for depopulation, just like the Georgia Guidestones is calling for depopulating the plain to 500 million people. But will they tell you that? Will they tell you that the UN is planning on bringing in foreign troops to lock down America and declare martial law? No, they will not. Please seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha so that you can be ready to stand in that evil day. It's only a matter of time. This is Truth Unveiled here, keeping you updated and saying as usual, shalom.